Good morning.
Yeah, so saddle with the dog, so.
Chris and Ron, how's it going?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I had you muted. Are you able to hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You can see everybody fine.
Great. Computers or the camera's still starting up on our end. And I believe we got 1, 2, 3,
What's
4.
the red? Or down on the team?
Oh, that's
It's always there.
yeah, for some reason my old Teams account for my old job is still on there.
Mhm.
Yeah. But disabled, so
Yeah.
it's there. All right, I think we're nearing a quorum. 3, 5, 6. We need one more. One more. Yeah, we'll give it a minute or two. Boy, that video takes a while to boot up. Yeah, it usually doesn't take.
I was gonna
Like
say, it's
this
usually
long?
not that bad.
I mean, I am used to, especially when I have like 10 tabs open and Teams going it being a little slower, but not generally this slow.
At least you're not relying on Verizon or ACEDC, any of those. Everybody was walking around the job site yesterday looking at their phones. I don't have any signal. It's SOS.
With that,
Yeah, people, we got AT&T. AT&T wasn't working either. Just, and Verizon wasn't, because Verizon uses, or Comcast uses Verizon's tower.
right?
So they were.
I was in SOS yesterday
Yeah.
yeah. Some challenges. The friend who also has Verizon have no issues though, and I'm wondering if it's like where, like your state of origin plan is from. Because this person has some Verizon from New York, and then everyone that I know has like, Vermont or Massachusetts or something. Yeah.
Right. That give us a quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is a quorum. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone on this rainy day. Gonna begin. I'll call to order the first meeting of 2026, January 15th at 7:31. First, we'll go around and do some introductions. Why don't we start in the room? Dave Castle, Board President, the Weybridge resident, and Director of Operations at Mechanical Advantage.
Richard Borsman, the Assistant Director here at ACEDC.
Richard McCurr, representing town of Middlebury.
Nicole Bashand, ACDC.
And Alex Armani-Mon, Executive Director, ACEDC. All right, and we have everyone on Zoom recorded. The first order of business is any changes to the agenda. Anyone like to make any changes? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as is?
I'll move it.
All right. Is there?
Oh, sorry.
All right, Richard. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we'll accept the agenda as is. Next order of business is the December meeting minutes. Those are in your SharePoint folder. Is there a motion to accept or any changes to the December minutes? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes as is?
I'll move.
Second. Chris. There's a second.
Too muted over there, they may not.
Good, I'll second.
All right, great, thanks. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we're gonna accept the minutes and I will hand it over to Alex for the staff activity report. Thanks, Dave. So a full staff activity report is available on SharePoint, but I will run through some highlights now. First, I'll mention that our quarterly newsletter, so this edition is the winter newsletter, did go out yesterday. So big thank you to Nicole for working on that. In addition, I'll report on some grow activity. This again is the tourism grant that we administer in partnership with the chamber, really focus on attracting new residents to Addison County. So we are in the process now of closing out the 2024-2025 grow grant while launching the 2026-2027 grow grant. This is something that Camille had administered for the last year and a half. She's now training Richard on this, and I do want to take a moment and just really acknowledge and commend Richard's work on this over the last week or two. He's really jumped in with a lot of enthusiasm and great insight on how we can improve our administration of this program. And I will say this program is one of the more tedious programs from an administrative standpoint that we have in our grant portfolio. So it's been really exciting to again see Richard embrace that and provide some really good sort of critical analysis of the process we use for administering that. So very excited and confident that he will do an awesome job administering that program. So in addition, a lot of deadlines today for reporting. So I have our quarterly report to ACCD due today. This report is a requirement of our operating grant with ACCD. So with the submittal of this report, we'll get our next round of quarterly funding from ACCD. That's a check for about $29,000. So that'll be incoming once that's submitted. In addition to that, I will also be submitting regional project priority list today. So this includes the Addison County list, but just a reminder to folks that we are actually the administrator for all of the RDCs on the RPP. So what that means is that all the RDCs throughout Vermont submit their list to us. We review everything to make sure it's complete and that all the information is provided. We compile it into one report and we submit that to the state. So I'll be submitting that today as well as a quarterly report. And also working on some reporting and an extension for our MBRC capacity grant, which again, we also administer on behalf of 3 other RDCs. And that's actually a good segue to an update on our work at the industrial park. So we are nearing completion on the pre-development engineering of new infrastructure there at the phase 2 and phase 3 areas. I expect that should be done probably by March or April. There was a slight delay due to some arrowheads that were discovered in the area. So we're waiting for more conducive weather to further investigation. I don't anticipate that this is going to have a great impact on the overall design there. But again, it slowed the process just a little bit. But anyway, excited to say that progress does continue there. And as we complete that design work, I'm continuing to work very closely with both the college and the town on just big picture planning for that area and what it looks like in the future and how we market it to potential users. I will be presenting to the Middlebury College trustees next month, providing an update on work performed to date, as well as facilitating some discussion again around what future use looks like in that area. And we'll be meeting again with administration from the college next week to continue that conversation. So again, as we do design work there, there's also a larger conversation, a larger effort happening around strategy for planning and marketing of that area. Also excited to share that we will be hosting senior staff from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, as well as the Agency of Natural Resources for a visit to Addison County a week from today. So they'll be in town next week to tour and meet with Kevin, to tour Vermont Frames and meet with the owner, Kevin Moyer. Kevin is awesome, really intelligent, really sharp, has won some awards and acknowledgement for, small business ownership here in Vermont. And he has, for the last year or so, been working on expanding his company, but has been running into challenges related to Act 250. So through conversations I've had with Kevin, I saw the need to bring in some staff again from A&R and ACCD to just highlight the challenge that he faces. He tries to grow this business that has been here in Addison County and Starksboro for over 50 years. So really excited again to just get in front of state leadership and tell the story of business here in Addison County and some of the challenges we face from a regulatory standpoint. In addition to visiting Vermont Frames, staffers from ACCD will also be visiting Dave Cole over at Mechanical Advantage as well. Also, with Virgins, I will be doing a follow-up CHIP presentation to their city council later this month. That's just really discussing our efforts and our work around preparing a CHIP application to support the Virgins North Housing Project. So again, we were really excited to secure $1 million MBRC grant with the city to support infrastructure for that project. And the last piece of the puzzle to really get that project moving forward will be a TIF agreement that will really provide matching funds for that MBRC match and close the gap on the $2 million worth of infrastructure needed to support that project. So really excited for that. And as I mentioned before, this project is sort of a great guinea pig to allow us to create a more structured program and approach to how we manage CHIP applications. So if we're successful, this is a model I hope to carry on to future housing projects that could benefit from CHIP. Last but not least, I want to let folks know that we are continuing to work with Weishart Wamet and Associates. Our auditor was expecting the audit report for fiscal year 25 this month. Did get a little delayed. No red flags. I think they just were a little understaffed through the holidays, but they have told me that they will have it ready next month. So expect a presentation on our fiscal year 25 audit report next month. Again, was hoping to have that today to go along with our fiscal controls presentation, but we'll have that then. Also next month, we'd like to do a little discussion on just legislative matters, what's on our radar, what's a priority for the RDCs, and we'll likely have we're hoping to have a presentation as well from Dr. McTavish on legislative issues impacting CTEs. So it's just a little taste of what we've been up to lately. Happy to go into more detail or answer any questions on anything I may have mentioned there or anything I didn't mention.
Okay, hearing no discussion. Well, thank you for doing all this work. I think it's exciting that CHIP and application stuff is moving along. It's going to be good. It was part of our goals that we discussed at the retreat. Thanks for moving that along. The next order of business is reviewing the December financials.
Yeah. Let me find them here. So some good news and bad news on financials. The good news is I think we are continuing to trend in the right direction as far as balancing our budget for the first time in a few years. The bad news is we are still working to resolve the redundant charges on our IRP revolving loan fund accounts with USDARD. I was able to provide an update to the executive committee this week. Finally, after months of emails and voicemails to USDARD, I did get an update. Unfortunately, it was not the update I was hoping for. Basically, what they told us was that they have flaws in their system and every IRP fund is getting basically erroneous charges. So we are not the only organization dealing with these challenges. But in that update, they really did not provide any insight or indication as to when this would be resolved. So again, it continues to be frustrating. And really the impact this has on our financial reporting is looking at net income. As of the end of December, net income reads negative $8,669.71. However, once we reconcile the $28,120 in redundant charges on those accounts, our actual net income is around $19,000. So again, trending in the right direction. As I mentioned, we will have our next payment from ACCD coming in the next week or two, as well as another round of reimbursements from capacity grant expenses. I will say at the beginning of the fiscal year, we were dealing with some cash flow challenges that required us to pull some money from savings. We've since put that money back into savings and I think have created a pattern for ourselves where I don't anticipate, fingers crossed, running into that issue again where we're getting low in our operating account. So feeling really good about the financial situation at the moment. But really hopeful we can resolve these issues with USCRD sooner rather than later. I'll go into a little more detail on financials with the presentation today, but one other item I do just want to call attention to, and I'll probably be bringing this up at every board meeting from now until forever, because I think it'll just be one of those perpetual challenges. But one area of the budget specifically that gives me a little anxiety is our membership dues. I believe to date we're at about, I apologize, I'm looking for it here, 11,000 in our budget. It's budgeted at 45,000. We have a large spike in renewals around the end of the fiscal year in like May, June. So a lot of those could come in then. But that's an area where, again, I think we as staff still have some ground to make up to ensure that we're generating the revenue budgeted. But that's also an area where we really look to the board for some support and some help leveraging your relationships to ensure that we're getting renewals as well as new memberships. So yeah, that's the one area I'm really kind of keyed in on these days to do more work to ensure that we are generating the revenue we need to balance the budget. Otherwise, things are looking pretty good.
Alex, do you have a breakdown of over the past 6 months if people have renewed or are we losing
Yes.
folks?
Yeah.
Sort of net positive or?
We, I think, are like -4 or 5 maybe, but that is, there are a few folks who like we know are going to renew. It's just taken some time, but they've told us they're going to renew. So we're right on the precipice of being neutral, which honestly is.
But it
is
was
nice.
like 24.
There was a point in like July where we were like -24, -25. Because again, like I think it's like May, June, there's just this
Right.
wave of renewals. So it's taken a lot of work to get to the point we're at, and it's been good. We've gotten a lot of new members. And the way I see it is we kind of have this grace period between now and in June to really, get those numbers positive so that we're not kind of digging out of a hole when that spike of renewals comes.
Mhm.
So we have a period here where we can again, I think, make
And
up
get
some
some new
positive
ones.
ground. But as I mentioned, it's an area where I think the board can have a lot of impact. And I'm always happy to do another agenda item, next month or in February or March, where we can go into more detail on that, talk more about maybe some potential new members that we've identified or some challenging renewals. So yeah, we
That's
can,
probably a good conversation.
Yeah,
yeah,
right. I mean, that I remember this always being an issue where it comes late in the year, everyone's worried and then it lands and it's okay. So as long as it's
Yeah.
not affecting cash, but we do want to increase membership, right? Like that.
yeah. And I know I'll sound like a broken record. I say this all the time, but it's one I'll stick to is we have about 100 active members representing nonprofits and businesses in Addison County, and that's that's less than 10% of the overall nonprofit and business community in Addison County. So we're never going to have 1,000 members. I mean, that'd be awesome. But all that to say, I think there's a ton of potential for growth. There's, having even 150 active members, which I don't think is crazy, would make a huge impact for us. I think it also I always say as well, the value of our members is not just the dollars we get to support our operations, but it's also the insight and the participation, the feedback. So if we in the next couple of years could get it up to 150, I would be ecstatic. So
Alex, I should probably
Yes.
know this, but when and how do we bill for our membership dues?
So it's an annual due, and folks historically have gotten an auto-generated email. I think we've mentioned in past meetings, we found that more often than not, that auto-generated email is going to a junk folder, never actually making it to folks. So we are, it takes some time and some effort to follow up with personal emails, with calls, meeting with folks. Folks do have the option to auto renew. I'm not sure if there's a single member who does. I don't think anybody does, but that option does exist in Glue Up. I'm sure there's been conversation in the past around offering some discount or incentive for auto renewal. I don't know if we've ever implemented anything like
I
that.
don't know if they ever even tried really, but so.
Yeah, but generally, yeah, we're having to invoice people or send them a link to renew online. So a lot of manual effort there.
Okay,
And
and
we can-
if a business originates their membership in May, are they going to get, they're on a May cycle forever?
Yeah,
Okay,
so that's
so
why
it's-
it's kind of
Kind of
staggered.
dispersed through
But
the
I
year.
think
Okay,
Yeah, I think what I believe, and I'm not 100% on this, is that we started using Glue Up, I think it was around 2020, 2021, and I think it was around probably April or May. So I think there was a point in time where we dumped a lot of our memberships into Glue Up, and that's why there's that spike each year around that time of year.
Got it.
Yeah.
And one other question on the profit and loss. There's line 6050 professional services other of 6349.
Yes. Glad you brought that up.
Budget.
That is Camille. So since Camille transitioned from an hourly employee to more of a contracted employee, that is her cost.
Got it. Thank you.
One question related to the IRP issue. Are you in touch with other organizations? Do you know the other organizations and are you in touch with them? So when someone's successful, we know a path.
I have brought this up with other RDCs and they've mentioned having issues in the past. I don't know if there's an RDC that's dealing with it right now, but I know somebody has mentioned like, a couple of years ago we had a similar issue.
Okay.
So I'll continue to communicate with the RDCs, and yeah, possibly reach out to other IRP borrowers. So
Okay.
yeah.
Any other discussion related to the financials? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the M&C activity report.
That will be in the folder today.
And again, newsletter went out yesterday. We did have a couple press mentions this past month that we were excited about. One I was particularly excited about was an Addison Independent, a story, and then on the MBRC grant for the city of Virgins. There's a really nice quote in there from Ron Redmond about the role that we played in the application. So again, that was some great, I think, sort of earned media, if you will. I'll also mention another Addison Independent article on a new business, the bar, a gym here in Middlebury. We were also cited in that. We did assist the owner, James, in pursuing financing. We connected him with several lenders, including Green Mountain Credit Union, who he ultimately was able to get a loan from. So the article was accurate in mentioning the role we played in assisting James in securing financing. However, it said that we helped him get a loan from Vita, and Vita is not the institution that he ended up borrowing from. So there was a minor error in that. But again, excited to see that we were mentioned for the role we played there. Was there another?
There was a third one. Was it the Catalyst program or was that something different?
BGS as well. I think we got
Yeah,
a little
BGS.
press around that, but
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I think those were the three major ones.
Yeah. So a couple good press mentions this month, but yeah.
Great. Any questions related to that? All right, hearing none, this is now an opportunity for citizen comments. An opportunity to raise or address issues not otherwise included in the agenda. Anyone? All right, so we'll move on to the next order of business, which are the resolutions brought forward. Alex, can you just sort of do a summary? They're all in your SharePoint folder.
Yes. So the first resolution on the docket is appointment of Fred Kenny and Darcy Tart to the ACEDC Loan Committee. Just for context, our bylaws require that our loan committee has a minimum membership of 5 folks and a maximum membership of 7. We, for the past year, were operating with 6 members. One of those was Gina, who, when she stepped off the board, also stepped off the loan committee, which brought us down to 5. And then we were notified towards the end of December that another member, Paul Valente, had moved on to a new job. And because of that transition, also had to step off the loan committee. So that dropped us down to 4 members. But very excited to have Darcy agreeing to join the committee, as well as Fred. And I think Fred, especially given his experience operating our lending program, will provide some great institutional knowledge and background as I continue to learn the lending side of things. So really just looking for approval from the board today for the appointment of these 2 folks to the loan committee so that we can continue loan business.
Any discussion related to that? And we know Darcy well, but I don't know who this Fred guy is. All right, so is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented to appoint Fred Kenny and Darcy Tart to the ACEDC Loan Committee?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All right, great. Yeah. Everyone mute. So all in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
I
All right,
abstain.
hearing none. You can abstain, yes. Note that. All right, hearing none, we approve this resolution. So the next order of business is the resolution related to the IRP matching funds.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So continuing on the theme of lending. So to give folks background here, we have really since I came on board, and I think even before I joined, had been working on recapitalizing our USARD, IRP revolving loan funds. As of today, I think we have just over $200,000 in capital available to lend out, which is great, but that could go, fairly quickly. So we've been pursuing a $500,000 recapitalization again for about a year and a half. We've had 2 unsuccessful applications in a row, and we've gotten pretty clear feedback from USARD that the only way that we are going to score higher through future applications is by providing matching funds. And just so folks are aware, the scoring criteria for USARD IRP applications is very, very straightforward, very sort of rigid. So you could rewrite an application 100 different ways, but if you're not checking specific boxes, it's not going to do anything to change your score. It has to be really concrete actions. And we score very highly, I think, in every other aspect of the criteria, from our borrowing history to our structure to having a clean audit. So again, really the only change or improvement we can make to this application is providing matching funds. So by providing a match of $25,000, we would get 10 more points on our application. By providing a match of $50,000, we would get 15 points. I think 10 extra points would suffice to make us competitive. I should preface this by saying there is no guarantee that by providing matching funds, we will suddenly have a successful application. Continues to be a very competitive program. But I think it will, again, position us to be even more competitive. So what I'm proposing to the board is that we take $25,000 from our ACEDC revolving loan funds and put that towards a match for USARD. And again, for context, in addition to our USARD revolving loan funds, we also have a separate ACEDC revolving loan fund with a balance of $83,000. We currently have just one active loan in that fund to Stony Hill Properties up in Bristol. But we have not issued a new loan through that fund in years. I don't know when. I mean, Stony Hill would have been the last one. That was several years ago. So it's essentially inactive. That money is really just sitting there. So it's not, in my opinion, being put to good use. I think it's also important to note here that in allocating that $25,000 from the ACDC revolving loan fund to a match for the USDA fund, that money will still go into borrowing. It will still be lent out. So we're just moving it from one fund to another one where it'll be activated. The next deadline for the IRP application is March 31st. So with the board's approval of these matching funds, Camille will begin working on that application, and Richard will be supporting that. So Camille will essentially train Richard on doing that application, though again, it doesn't change from cycle to cycle. So we'll basically be recycling our past applications. So it shouldn't be a huge lift to apply. But we would look to submit March 31st, and we would find out within a quarter. I mean, knock on wood, it's hard to tell with USDA these days. So that's our proposed approach right now. I do want to mention that, and this came up at the board retreat last year. USARD is the fund that we have, or the source we've historically used for recapitalizing our loan funds. However, it's not the only source. I would like to take one more stab at USARD, and if it's unsuccessful, we can look at then MBRC could be a source, EDA if we get our EDD designation, CDBG, even though there's been cuts to that. But there are, all that to say, there are other, we could look at alternative approaches to recapitalization if this next application is unsuccessful. But for now, I think this is the best course of action, and it gives us, I think, ample capital to really ramp up our lending again, which has been slow. in recent years. So
Are there any questions related to that? I had a couple. Can you just sort of explain the point system and what, when if we get 10 extra points, what's the total volume of points? Like,
I believe it's out of 100. I would have to look at the criteria again. But again, some of the other things are, is there a board providing oversight? Describe your board, describe your experience as an organization managing revolving loan funds. So we have a good board structure. We have 30 years of lending experience and history through this program. We have an extremely low rate of default on our loans. So all those things work in our favor. So again, I think we also historically have been very successful in submitting applications. I think 2021 might have been our last recapitalization. So without knowing the whole history, I think this is the first time we've run into serious challenges where we're just not getting over the hump.
And then do you feel like moving this money to the matching funds constrains us at all to who we can loan to with the USDA?
In my opinion, no. And just so folks are aware, with our USARD funds, we cannot lend on agricultural operations since there's other funding sources through USDA for agricultural operations. We also can't lend on residential real estate. So those are really the two biggest limits. But I don't feel like it hasn't been my experience or my impression that USARD has really been that restrictive. And Richard, I don't know how long you've been on loan committee, but do you feel in your
I
experience
haven't seen it.
yeah, so I don't feel like it's too restrictive for the requests we get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I have one. Can you just talk a little bit about the demand for these funds versus the demand for the internal funds?
Yeah, so and again, I can only speak really to my experience, but I think we generally have always gone right to the USDARD funds because that's what's readily available. And there's also for us the ACDC funds could just sit there forever and there's no consequences to that. Where with USDARD, we are required to actually lend those funds out and with it there's time constraints there. So I think as a matter of just standard operating, we've always gone to USDARD. So that's where we've always concentrated the demand. But when folks come in and apply for a loan with us, they're not requesting, USDARD versus the ACEDC fund. They just submit the request and we kind of decide which fund we'll pull it from. But as far as I can tell, we've always just pulled from the USDARD funds, and the ACEDC revolving loan fund has always been there as sort of an alternative. For maybe more challenging requests or smaller requests with USDARD, there is a minimum 10,000 and a cap of $200,000 for the loans issued through that. But again, I don't think with that range, I don't think we've ever been restricted in terms of the demand that we see.
So is it fair to say with, the recapitalization, what this will get ACDC is the ability to make some larger investments?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, so is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented to allocate $25,000 in funds from the ACDC revolving loan account to provide matching funds for the USDARD IRP, the revolving loan fund recapitalization application? Wow. Acronyms.
So
Is
moved.
there a second?
A second.
All right, we'll bring it to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, hearing none, we will pass the resolution. Thank you, Alex, for bringing that.
Yeah.
So the next item on the agenda is the discussion around fiscal controls.
And so if the board will be so kind to excuse me for a moment, I did just get a text from Charlene Seward, our accountant at Seward and Associates, asking me to resend the meeting link. So before I jump into the presentation, I'm going to send that to her again. Charlene will be joining us, so I'll do my presentation, then she will be available to answer any questions. So apologies for that.
real quick, I have a situation. I have to step away. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole.
While we're housekeeping, I have to hop off at 8:15 today, but I'll catch the recording if I miss the end of this presentation.
Okay, so I'm gonna get started and we'll hopefully have Charlene talk about it in a moment. So I do want to preface this presentation by first saying that I think it's just a matter of best operating procedure and standard practice to, on an annual basis, review our fiscal accounting, reporting, and internal controls. However, there's another reason that kind of motivated me to do this presentation to the board now. As folks may be aware, if you've seen the news in the last few weeks since Christmas, there was another director of an RDC here in Vermont, specifically the Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation, who was recently indicted for $71,000 of embezzled funds, which is extremely unfortunate, and certainly not a good look for any of the RDCs. But what I saw in this unfortunate event was an opportunity to really reinforce the approach that we take to ensuring that we have transparency and accountability, and that we are doing the work necessary to prevent any situation like that ever arising here at ACEDC. So again, I think this is a great opportunity for us to just take that accountability and assure the board that we have great processes and controls in place. So I do have a presentation. I'll also let folks know that our formally board adopted fiscal policies and procedures are available on SharePoint. In addition to that overarching policy, we have about 10 other associated policies, from a capital asset policy to an operating reserves policy, a whistleblower policy. So I'll refer to some of those throughout the presentation. There's a bit of ground to cover here, so I'm going to try to get through it quickly at a kind of a high level, and I'd like to just use this as a foundation for more dialogue, questions, conversation, again, on our internal controls. So as always, I apologize for talking fast, but I will try to get through this efficiently. All right. So just a quick overview. I'm going to speak to our fiscal and internal control policies and procedures. Again, this is a formally adopted 10-page policy on our internal controls. I'll speak to the budget process, and then I'll talk a little more in detail about how we process invoices and pay bills, how we track our credit card use and staff expenses. I'll speak about our monthly financial package and our reconciliation process, the annual audit. And I'll speak very briefly at the end about our IRP quarterly reporting and annual budget, and our existing whistleblower policy, and what steps we would take to report any suspected fraud. All right. So again, I would encourage folks to review our fiscal and internal control policy and procedures document. And certainly can always take more questions on that at future board meetings, or by just reaching out to me directly. So again, if folks haven't reviewed it, feel free to do so after this meeting. It was last reviewed and approved in February 2024, so it's been almost 2 years. So again, I think we're due for a review now. The second thing I'll mention in that document, it refers to the ED, the executive director, the operations manager, which would be Nicole's position, and the assistant director, which when this was last reviewed was Karen Dugway. Happy to say we have an assistant director again. So I think because we have an assistant director now, this document aligns again with our current staffing. There's also the AF, the accounting firm. And there's Charlene. All right. Charlene, welcome. I was just starting my presentation, and actually serendipitous time, and you joined now, because I was just mentioning our AF, or accounting firm, Stewart & Associates. So I do want to say, I think having a third-party accounting firm and not doing our finances in-house is probably the best firewall we have against any potential fraud, and ensuring that there's accountability in our financial accounting. I also want to mention that Charlene and her team are amazing. They are incredible. Like I could not have done this job over the last year without them. If they charged us by the phone call, gosh, they would make a lot of money off of us. But I call them every day. But no, aside from just the accountability and the transparency that Stewart and Associates provides, their level of professionalism and just again the efficiency that they provide in our financial management is amazing. So really, really excited to have them supporting us. So again, in that fiscal and internal control policy and procedures document, you'll see AF throughout, and that refers to Stewart and Associates. So the document, and these are just a few highlights from that document. There are parts of it that aren't mentioned here. But unbudgeted expenditures and capital assets, any unbudgeted expenditure does require approval from the executive committee. And if there's an unbudgeted expenditure of $10,000 or more, that will require full board approval. I don't believe we've had anything unbudgeted that large this year. You could count our $25,000 reallocation of funds, I suppose. Capital assets, again, we do have a capitalization policy, and that really just requires that we are documenting any capital asset of $1,500 or more and accounting for that. Bank accounts and petty cash. So I do want to bring up, I just want to review our bank accounts with folks real quick. So we have several bank accounts. Primarily our operating and savings accounts are held at M&T, while our revolving loan fund accounts are held at National Bank of Middlebury. I will mention that one update we need to make to this document is in relation to the Market Advantage for Business Savings Account 8543. This account was closed, I think, shortly before I started, and that money was rolled into another savings account. So this account no longer exists. Otherwise, 6675, that's our operating account. So that's where the majority of our revenue and expenditures are coming through. In addition, we also have CD and commercial savings account. The CD, I believe, today has around 55,000, and the commercial savings around 80,000. And then in addition to that, we also have our credit card with M&T. But again, the majority of what you're going to see on the financial package each month is related to our operating account. And I'm the only staff member who has login access to that operating account. Seward also has access to all of those accounts. I'll mention just with the National Bank of Middlebury accounts real quick. With those accounts, there's some paper check deposits we make into those accounts. Otherwise, any money coming out of those accounts is set up as automatic transfers. So specifically with account 5335, this is our USDRD account. There is a monthly transfer after loan payments are made. Administrative fees paid to ACEDC are automatically transferred. Otherwise, there's never any withdrawals coming out of that account. I'm never withdrawing from that account. I know we don't have a debit card really for M&T or for National Bank of Middlebury. So again, transactions specifically with the National Bank of Middlebury accounts are pretty standard and pretty predictable. Similar to the checking account. All right, so operating receipts. Again, this is just money we have coming in. I'll talk a little bit more about that on another slide, but this is covered in our fiscal and internal control policy document. Same thing with our disbursements, money we're paying out. It also goes over our reconciliation process, which I'll speak to in a moment. And there's about 3.5 pages of that document specifically dedicated to our loan fund management. All right, so our budget process. So really, our accountability begins with the budget process. And I think financial oversight and budgeting is one of the most important roles that the board plays. So for folks who've been on the board for a while, this is old hat, old news for you. This process, but just a reminder, especially for folks who are new, we operate on a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year. So we present a draft budget to the board annually at the May retreat. So that budget is reviewed and discussed at the retreat alongside our strategic planning conversation for the years to ensure that the budget and the strategic plan align. So with feedback from the May retreat, I make updates to that draft budget, and then it is generally approved at our June meeting so that it's in place for the beginning of the fiscal year on July 1. I also want to mention here, and this is something that we'll get into more detail at the retreat and can discuss more anytime. But if you look at our budget, I think there's a pretty clear delineation between what I call fixed and flexible spending. And really the fixed spending represents items like our office expenses, a lot of our professional services, so things like our audit, our accounting services. And these are the things that are largely rolled over year to year. That in theory we could negotiate, we could change, but they're pretty static year to year, and there's generally not a ton of discussion around them. A couple of the fixed costs that we have eliminated recently are our $50 a month cleaning service. We really weren't getting any service for that, so we eliminated that. Also, the I think $1,200 or $1,400 a month we were paying for marketing services to Clover Ridge. We brought that in house, but again, otherwise, like things like our rent, cost for the copier, all of those things are pretty fixed. And what I've found, going through last year's budget process is there's kind of a limited number of things that are really flexible when it comes to our budget. Things like marketing costs, professional development costs, things of that, meals and mileage, things of that nature. Otherwise, just again, the context, and we'll save the budget conversation for another day. But I mentioned earlier labor costs. That's our biggest expense challenge year to year, especially last year with the transition at the executive director position. I think we overspent by about $50,000 or $60,000. I think that was something anticipated. But generally, especially when we have transitions, that's where I think we have the most unpredictability year to year in expenses and revenue challenges. As we discussed before, membership dues year to year is always a challenge. Lending hasn't, I don't think, historically been a challenge, but this is something I want to flag for future conversations. We have a couple loans that were closed out this year, and we have a few more that will mature in the next year or two. And again, if we're not ramping up our lending activity, we will see our revenue from lending or our loan administration start to decline. So just something to be aware of. All right. So how do we process invoices and bill pay? So the first thing I'll mention, we do not use paper checks. We have no paper checks. We don't really pay anybody with checks. The majority of the payments we make are done through auto pay or ACH. So in most cases, recurring payments, those fixed costs, are made by an auto debit via our online bill pay. So twice a month, we have Alyssa in Charlene's office who sets up bill pay in our online banking platform. She'll let me know. I'll go in and approve those bills. And again, that really relates to those online payments to a lot of our recurring costs. We do have a few recurring costs that are paid through the credit card, things like our Zoom subscription, our Canva subscription, our annual fee for Adobe, things of that nature. Otherwise, when I get an invoice, I review it, I save it to our financial documents folder. Alyssa will go in and review that. She'll set up an ACH and what we call the Treasury Center through M&T. She'll let me know when that ACH is ready. I'll approve the ACH, and then that invoice is paid. Once the invoice is paid, Alyssa goes in and moves it from the financial documents folder to a paid invoices folder. I also should mention, and I skipped over this when I was talking about our bank accounts, but we also have what we call the trust account at M&T. This account is dedicated specifically to pass-throughs. So for example, with Grow, when we get money from the state that we pay out to organizations like the Chamber, that goes through the trust account. The BGS Building Communities program is another good example where we get money on behalf of our sub-grantees or businesses who are awarded those grants. So when they send us our paperwork, we send it to the state. State sends us the money for the reimbursement to the business, goes in the trust account, and it gets paid from the trust account out to that business. So credit card use and expenses. Again, here, any credit card expense requires executive director approval and has to be compliant with the budget. So no unbudgeted costs can be charged on the credit card. We save all receipts, scan them, upload them to the financial documents folder. There's a specific credit card folder on there. We record all credit card transactions in a monthly expense report. I approve the monthly expense report for staff. I will say it's pretty rare that staff has any expenses. I think Nicole recently had expenses for a Reds meeting, so coffee and snacks for a meeting. And that was probably the first time in months.
First time.
And then my expense report gets reviewed and approved by Chris, our treasurer, every month. And again, that covers not only credit card expenses, but also mileage. Mileage, it's, they're not terribly common. I'm not really racking up much in mileage costs each month. But in addition to mileage, things like meals may be on there. And again, we have like our Zoom payment each month on the credit card. We have a $5,000 credit limit. We've never come close to hitting it. And we have auto pay set up for the credit card every month. All right. So the monthly financial package and reconciliation. And again, this is where I think after the budget, our accountability and our transparency is really most in effect. So every month, Seward prepares a monthly financial package. The version that the board sees includes our balance sheet, our profit and loss, and our statement of cash flows. However, we also have a full version that includes reconciliation details. So you can see reconciliation and transactions for all of our accounts, as well as agent report for our accounts receivable and agent report for our accounts payable. So again, I don't present the reconciliation detail or the agent accounts in the board packet, but if any board member ever wants to see that, let me know, just shoot me an email and I'm more than happy to send that your way. So Nicole, part of her job duties every month is doing our glue up or pay gauge reconciliation. So glue up is the platform, the software that we use for managing membership as well as events. So a lot of membership dues are paid through glue up. Pay gauge just refers to the payment sort of platform within glue up. So each month when we get those membership due payments, that's paid through glue up. So Nicole will go in there and reconcile the payments through glue up, transfers to our bank account, and sends that on to Alyssa. Nicole also documents all of our deposited checks every month in a check log and verifies transactions. And we have a spreadsheet for operating account documentation. So every month I download our transaction history from our operating account, put it in a spreadsheet. Nicole goes in there and notes, what the purpose was and if there's documentation for that transaction. So then Alyssa at Seward's office cross-references bank accounts and check log every month, their reconciliation, and any discrepancies she reports to me. So again, annual audit, we'll have our fiscal year 25 audit report presented next month. We currently work with Weishart, Wilmette and Associates. This is the second year of working with them. We are generally subject to a single audit. There were recent changes in the threshold for a single audit. Historically, the threshold was $750,000 in federal funds. As of October 1, 2025, that went up to $1 million. We have about $900,000 in federal funds through USARD. So we've always kind of been over that historic $750,000 limit, and we'll be kind of right on the precipice of the $1 million limit in the coming years. So we'll always kind of be right on that line of whether or not we will need a single audit. But again, we've gotten used to having one over the years. So if that continues to be the case, we kind of know that routine now. And as far as I can tell, for several years, we've always had clean audits. I'm not aware at any time in recent history or in the past where we had something significant flagged in our audit. I should also mention that because we receive an operating grant from the state and because of our participation in USARD, that audit is required. So again, just more levels of accountability. So last thing I'll mention, we do have a whistleblower policy. It was adopted in 2010. I don't think it's been updated since. I don't think it hurts to revisit that. And that really lays out, again, just any reports of, unethical behavior, fraud, whatever it is. I also, want to mention again, I think Seward provides a great firewall. And Charlene, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do want to speak maybe for a moment to what Seward would do or what the process would be for Seward if you saw any indication of potential fraud or anything concerning, especially as it relates to my position, how that might be reported or communicated to the board, or, just any, duties that you guys have, when issues arise, that may be, again, fraudulent or problematic. Charlene, are you still with us? Okay, well, we'll see if she's able to join the audio. But with that, again, I know that was a very, very quick presentation. But again, would love to entertain any questions, any discussion that the board has.
Well, Alex, I want to thank you for being proactive on this. You brought this to the executive committee and this is how it got on the agenda. So thanks for staying ahead of it. And Chris, do you have any comment as treasurer about the controls? Do you feel they're adequate? Any comments?
Hey, I think we're doing a great job, and I commend Alex for, like you said, giving us this update in light of things that have happened recently.
And Charlene, I don't know if you can hear us, but thank you for supporting Alex in the transition. It's a big change to switch an executive director. So for him to say that he feels supported on that end, that's great. And I think over the past few years working with you, it's really smoothed out a lot of things. So we appreciate that.
Alex, I echo those same sentiments. This is terrific. Thank you for being proactive. This is critically important. Really,
Thank
really
you.
well done.
All right, any other discussion? All right, next on the agenda is executive session, which we do not have. So thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:25. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
We
everybody.
got to quite a bit, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alex. Nice work. I'm gonna share them.
Was she having trouble?
Yeah, I guess so, but
It's not the first time.